Hi, I'd like to talk to you about a book I've read recently called Little Disasters by Sarah Vaughan. Now, I read it online, so that is a picture of the book. This is a book about a mother who has just had her third child, and she's finding it very, very difficult. Postnatal stuff. The child is much more difficult than her other two children, and basically she's losing it. And she's losing it to such an extent, she's got a lot of issues, that when her child is harmed, social services and the police are called in. So I would say this book, it's not some literary tome or anything, but it is a real page turner, and it's well written. And I'd put it in the thriller genre, because you never really know what has happened to her child until the very end. Each chapter's done from a different point of view, sometimes hers, sometimes her husband's, sometimes her friend. One of her friends is a doctor. And it does raise all the issues of men, not all men, I absolutely don't mean all men, some men, they go to work and they really have no idea about the daily grind of child rearing. That's one of the issues. One of the other questions it raises is we always think everyone else's life is so perfect, and of course life isn't always perfect, is it? It's brilliant, and yeah, it's an easy, good read that kept me going right until the early hours, trying to see what happened next. The same author, Sarah Vaughan, has also written Anatomy of a Scandal, which is being made into a film, which I also recommend. Thank you, bye.
Hi, so I wanted to tell you about a novel that I've just finished reading. I haven't got it here to show you because I read more than 90% of my novels online on the Deepings Library, Lincolnshire Libraries, ebooks. They're just fantastic, and I choose them in a kind of odd way, really. I choose what's available and not particularly by any author, so often I have a surprise and find just a really great book. And the one I'm telling you about is Meet Me at the Museum by Anne Youngson. It's a short novel, and it's totally in the form of letters backwards and forwards from Tina, who's a farmer's wife in Bury St Edmunds, and she's rather sad and muddled. There's stuff going on in her life which you can read about. And Professor Anders, and she didn't actually write to him initially. She wrote to Professor Glob for the reasons that will become obvious in the first few pages of the book. It's just one of those books that hooks you in. It's from the first letter that you read, you just want to read the second letter to see how they're going to respond. And the characters are so full of life. You just kind of feel they're real. You want them to be real. But the biggest thing that I like about this book is it starts, "Dear Mrs. Hopgood," when he writes back, and ends, "Regards." And she writes, "Dear Mr. Curator," and they find out they've got so much in common, and she ends, "Sincerely yours." And then it develops, "Dear Tina, with love," and it ends, "My dearest Tina," at the start of the letter, "and with much love." And that's where I'm going to leave it, so you can work out all that goes on in between. It's a short read, but it's a great read. I hope you enjoy it.
While we've been in lockdown, I've been reading some new books on ebooks from the library, but I've also been revisiting my bookshelf and finding things that I haven't read for years. And one of the ones that I had I'd like to recommend to you now, and that is Jean Rhys's Wide Sargasso Sea. If you haven't met it before, briefly, it's the story of Mr. Rochester's wife, his first wife. It's obviously a backstory and an alternative story to the Jane Eyre version of Mr. Rochester's poor mad wife. We don't know anything about her in the book other than that she is mad. And she's described in terms of such bestiality and loathing by Mr. Rochester. We don't even know her name. She has no name. So this book gives her a name. It gives her her history, her story, her family. We find out how she married Rochester. We find out how she became mad. We find out something about her brother, Richard Mason, the one who stopped the bigamous marriage to Jane. And at the end of it, I think we have a greater understanding of both Jane Eyre and this book and this story and the poor woman who is in the background, although so present in Jane Eyre. It also does make you rather wonder whether Jane was wise to marry Rochester after all. I think if you like Jane Eyre, you will enjoy this. It will give you a greater depth and an understanding of that book, and also to enjoy it entirely for its own sake as a very clever and well-written character sketch.
Hello, I'm Jane. I'm a volunteer at the library, and I'm going to be reviewing a book, this one. It's called The Snowman by Jo Nesbø. The author is Norwegian, and it's actually pronounced Ju Nesbar, but I don't suppose that matters. Excuse me if I just read this, or refer to these notes, because I'm not that good at doing it without them. Anyway, the book is, I had a bit of a struggle with it at first because a lot of the names are Norwegian, of course, and they're not simple names and they're not easy to memorise. So sometimes I find I had to keep going back into the book to see who was who. But it's about the hunt for a serial killer in and around Oslo, and the main character is Harry Hole, a detective. He's a bit of a loose cannon and he does struggle with alcohol and relationships. But at the heart of him, he's actually an honest character, and I warmed to him actually, and he is a great detective, which is what the book is all about. In his earlier career, he caught a serial killer, which is quite rare for someone to have, for any country to have many serial killers, so he's quite renowned. This case, they call the serial killer the Snowman because when he commits his murders, he commits them on the first day of the snow coming, and he leaves a huge snowman in the grounds of the victims' houses. It's quite spooky, that, when they look out of the window and they see this snowman. While reading the book, I have to say, I kept asking myself why I was continuing with it. It is a little bit bloodthirsty. I do like crime novels, but amongst many other types of books, but this is very compelling despite the blood and gore. With each murder, the reader and the police suspect a different person, as is often the way with crime novels. Sometimes me and the police as well, suspected the husband of the victim. Often the victims were women, mostly women with children. But the final revelation, when they expose the murder, it is slightly unexpected. I did begin to wonder about this person towards the end of the book as the hunt was closing in. Wasn't sure, but anyway. You might feel a bit sorry for Harry, the detective. I did. He has a lot of bad luck, well, a lot of it's of his own fault, and the police, actually, the police department he's in, tried to get him off the case at halfway through it because his behaviour was so erratic and he drank a lot and all that sort of problems he has. But in the end, he came up trumps. And so if you decide to read the book, just stick with it, because as I say, the first quarter I thought, no, I don't know why I'm bothering to read this, but I'm glad I did. It's really very cleverly written and it's full of twists and turns, and I hope you enjoy it. Anyway, bye-bye.